yourself. And if you can, please keep your videos on. And we want this to be an engaging experience as well. So please feel free to ask questions and put notes on the chat, thought bubbles. And also, if you have any technical difficulties, please feel free to email Roman Jackson at rjackson@JobsFirstNYC. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Carrie Fallhaber, Vice President at JobsFirstNYC.
Thank you, Diana. And thank you everyone for being here. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that yesterday's events at our nation's capital are at a minimum unsettling, and on top of a very unsettling year overall, and folks may be experiencing a range of emotions. I know personally, I was sharing with our arts planning team here that I was more distracted and anxious than I've been in a very long time yesterday. And that all combined with also a strange hopefulness. I think that's the best description I have right now. And with that in mind, I made some adjustments to our icebreaker today so that we have space to connect. Thanks, Roman. So yeah, before we do that though, before we have time for the icebreaker, I just want to review together our intended results for this meeting. The participants will reaffirm the Green Economy Network's aspirations. We will generate green economy labor market data questions. We will learn from WEACT's solar co-op model and lessons learned from their green jobs training. And together we will identify what we can solve for as a partnership. Next slide, please. So you could see the agenda here. In addition to myself speaking today, we have Elizabeth Shepard of Green City Forest, who's going to lead that review of our Green Economy Network's aspirations and a discussion of gaps in last month's labor market data presentation. And we're also excited to welcome Charles Calloway, the Director of Organizing and Membership at WEACT for Environmental Justice. He's joining us today to share WEACT's Green Jobs Training Model and lessons that they've learned through designing and implementing that model. And I also just want to remind you that this is intended to be a really interactive meeting. We're building something together. And so, you know, we want to make sure that we're collaborating as we build the network. Next slide, please, Roman. Okay, so we're going to take a minute just to review the participant agenda. So a link should be in the chat for you to access the agenda. And we're going to pull it up on the screen here and just do a really quick walkthrough and give you all a moment to type in it. So if you're having issues accessing it, put something in the chat and hopefully someone on my team can give some direction there. It's a public file in the Google Drive. So if you have issues accessing the Google Drive, I know some organizations might let us know. And we'll figure out another way to share it. But for now, I just want to review every meeting that we've had has one of these. There's an about the session at the top. It has the results that we just talked about, the agenda. And Roman, if you could scroll up a little bit. So you'll just see these same kind of sections in every participant agenda, the speakers, our working sector definition, we keep posting it there so that you have quick access to it. The group Zoom and norms that Diana shared at the beginning of the meeting. What you see on the agenda, it's just sort of like a run of show for you. If we're gonna go down right now, just to, we're doing like a mini icebreaker before our big room icebreaker. This is a table that we had in the last participant agenda, but it was to some success and not that people were able to use it. So we wanna kind of do a test run, give you a minute to find your name. This list was populated from whoever registered through Zoom. So if you go through it, find your name and answer the blank section, the last column. At the top of that, it just says, ask me about blank. And, think of it as like, this is a place for us to network and for us to all be resources to each other. So in relation to what we're doing here, what would you want to put yourself out there as like the resource for? And there's blank lines at the bottom, boxes at the bottom there if you don't find your name. So let's just take a minute and pause and have you fill that in.
Carrie, I just messaged you. Everyone has access to view, but not edit. And I can't change that. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
So just 1 second, folks, and then we'll reshare the link and you can just refresh your screen once Carrie has changed that.
Anyone with the link can edit. Done. Okay, give it a shot. Sorry about that. I don't know why.
So you can refresh your screen if you have already had it up, or you can go back to the link I posted.
Oh, hang on here. Anyone on the internet with this link? Oh, hold on, sorry.
Carrie, it's Chris Collins from Solar One. I'm doing this by dial-in, so I'll fill this out later on today.
Okay. Sorry, folks, refresh one more time. I shared the my annotated agenda, not the participant agenda the first time. And again, we'll be scrolling down to the third page or lower, wherever your name is alphabetically. Okay, it looks like it's working for folks. Great, thank you for filling it in. Again, let us know in chat if you're having any trouble. Okay, so I really, I just wanted to make sure that people can access it. And now that it seems like you can, feel free to go in and fill in that section at any time following the meeting, or if there's a pause in the meeting when you want to do that. I want to move now to hold on, let me just pull up my. Okay, move now to launch our first poll. We want to get a sense of who's in the room. And Jesse, if you could go ahead and launch that poll, and everyone just take a moment to fill that in. If you don't see what you represent here, go ahead and put that in the chat. Another few seconds.
Okay, it looks like everyone is done, but if anyone wants to unmute themselves and yell at me that you need more time, go for it.
Okay, great. So yeah, I think the larger portion of the group's training providers. And now what we're going to do for our icebreaker is put faces to those categories. And like I said, this may take a little bit of time, and we built that extra time today because of, like I said earlier, it just was such a crazy day yesterday. And it's been a crazy year, and we wanted to have a little bit of a network feeling and do something where we can all be together. So the goal is to both kind of get you standing, moving, energized. If you want to, you don't have to stand if you're able to. But let's just start by asking everyone to set your view to gallery. And I'll read through those instructions. So maybe we could take those off the screen so everyone's got, Roman, if you want to stop sharing, great. So yeah, you should have go up to the right-hand corner view and choose gallery view. So everyone's kind of tiled squares. And with your video on, hopefully, if you feel like standing up and stretching out, please do. If you don't want to stand up, you just want to sit and stretch, that's fine. I know, not everyone maybe has the right bottoms on for standing on video. So just conscious of that as well. But however you want to do it, everyone could stretch their hands out toward the screen like this. You see my hands, and it looks like I'm holding hands with you. Stretch your arms out to the side and then in front, and touch the edges of your video frame. So like imagine you're in a box bound by the webcam. And I'll start by sharing my name and organization and how I would have responded to that first poll. And then based on where you are on my screen, who's on top of me, to the left of me, right of me, I'm going to toss or connect with you, and so on and so on. So I'll connect by saying your first name, and then you do the same. Share your name, organization, and how you would have responded to that poll. And well, since we are a pretty big group, I'll try and do it quickly, but I just want to have time to connect with everyone here. So good morning, I'm Carrie Fallhaber with JobsFirstNYC, and we are an intermediary. And I'm going to toss to my left, which is Trey Michael. I hand it to you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. My name is Trey Michael Reed, Trey for short. I'm the business development manager at the HOPE program, and we are a training provider.
And
to the bottom of me, well, you're actually next to me, Carrie, but I'm going to toss it to Amanda Rosenblum.
Thanks, Trey. Amanda Rosenblum from Jobs First, intermediary. I'll pass it to Jessie Conway-Pierce.
Hi, I'm Jessie Conway-Pierce from Jobs First, also an intermediary, and I will pass it, Trey Michael's next to me, so I will pass it to Roman, who's next to him.
You're on mute, Roman.
You're muted, Roman.
Sorry, thank you. Roman Jackson, Vice President, JobsFirstNYC, intermediary, and I pass it to Sakia Zaid.
Good morning. My name is Zakia. I work with the HOPE program, and we are a training provider. And I'll pass it to Kathleen Colhane.
Okay, I'll catch it like you did. Hi, everyone. Kathleen Colhane, president of Nontraditional Employment for Women. I answered CBO because we're a community-based organization, but really a training provider is more accurate. And I will pass it to, it says Kingsborough Community, CUNY. She's got it. She's below me.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Christine Zagari-Laporto, Kingsborough Community College. I'm the Director of Workforce Development, and I put down training provider. And so I'm going to pass it. Almost everyone around me has already gone, so I'm just going to pick randomly. Yep. Gasper Caro.
Good morning. I'm Gaspar Caro, Partnership Director for the Lower East Side Employment Network. We are, I don't know, community-based organization, training provider, and intermediary, I think. And I'll pass it to Diana Torres, who is on my screen's right.
Caught it. Thank you. Diana Torres, director at JobsFirstNYC. We're an intermediary. And I'll pass it to Eleni.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eleni Gast. I am the coordinator for career administrative services at The Door. And we are I put training provider, but we're a community-based organization for young people, connecting young people to education and career opportunities. I think everyone around me has gone. So if I repeat somebody, I'm so sorry. Eric Atunko, I'm sorry if I butchered your name.
It's not as bad as many do. It's Eric Antical. Hey, Assistant Vice President of Programs at Nontraditional Employment for Women, or NEW. And as Kathleen said, we're sort of community-based organization, but also a training provider. And so I will pass it to Christine James.
Hi, I'm Christine James McKenzie, Associate at Jobs First, Intermediary, and you know what we do. Welcome, everybody. And thank you for joining us. And I will pass off to Karen Diggs.
Good morning, everyone. I'm with Grant Associates, the workforce development, job placement, and everything from birth to earth. And glad to be here.
And Karen, toss it to somebody that you see. Oh, you're muted, Karen.
Mike has his hands, Mike Conway?
Yep.
The hand surrounding the hat, I like that.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, Mike Conway, Executive Director of Stacks and Jewels. We are a training provider in the high-tech side of green jobs. Oh, and I got to pass it. I pass it to Renee Rule.
I'm Renee Rule. I'm with the HOPE program, and we are a training provider. And I pass it to Charles Calloway.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing? My name is Charles Calloway. I work for We Act for Environmental Justice as the director of organizing and membership, and we are a environmental justice organization that works on EJ issues, and we do have a worker training component. And I will pass it to Milka.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Milka Rodriguez. I'm a policy advisor at the New York City Mayor's Office of Sustainability. We're currently doing some strategizing around amplifying workforce education in the sustainability sector. And we also operate an internship specifically for CUNY students in collaboration with the CUNY Building Performance Lab, connecting undergraduate and master's degree students to jobs in the energy sector. Oh, and I'm going to pass it to, I think it's Ensei Asema.
Hey everyone, I'm Ensei Asema. I'm from I work with the New York City Economic Development Corporation. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Smart and Sustainable Cities. A lot of the work I do right now is heavily focused on offshore wind and how to ensure New York City becomes a hub for that industry, particularly as it pertains to ensuring that we can build a diverse workforce, also do some work around solar, but generally broader green economy stuff. Good to meet everyone. We're a government agency, obviously.
And so you want to pass it to someone?
Right, sorry. Hi, Ellie, I'll pass it to you.
Ansei. My name is Ellie Khan. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior policy advisor at the Mayor's Office of Sustainability, which is government, of course, and I'm excited to be here with you all. Let me pass it off to Laura.
Thanks, Lily. Hi, I'm Laura Gibson. I'm with the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development. No, who's left to pass it to? How about Tanya Gale? Have you? Yes.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Tanya Gell. She, her, hers. I'm Executive Director of Green City Force, and we are a CBO as well as a training provider. And I will pass it to Annie.
Hi, everyone. Annie Garniva, Vice President of Policy and Special Initiatives at the New York City Employment and Training Coalition. We are an intermediary doing advocacy for the workforce equitable development field. Don't know anyone that's left because I don't see any other hands up. Oh, Rachel Rosen.
Hi, I'm Rachel Rosen. I'm from MDRC, which is a research and evaluation firm in New York City, and I co-direct our Center for Effective CTE, which is Career and Technical Education, focused on career technical education and training in secondary, post-secondary, and workforce divisions.
And toss it.
I don't. Is anybody left? Milka? Yep. Did you go?
I want it ready.
I see some hands up. Evelyn, Ashley, Christina.
Oh, I didn't realize there were two screens. Evelyn, right?
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I'm Evelyn Wright. I work for Ulster County up in the Hudson Valley, where I lead our Green New Deal efforts. And we are working on networking our training providers, our green businesses, and our job seekers in a green economy network. And I wanted to learn about the work that you all are doing. And I'll toss it to Joanna Larson.
Hi, I'm Joanna Larson. Thank you, Evelyn. I'm with the HOPE program. We are a training provider, and I will pass it to, I think, Aaron Marcel has his hands up.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Marcel, and I'm Alumni Training and Advancement Manager with Green City Force. We work to connect youth from NYCHA to the green economy through training and service programs. And I will pass it to Ashley Falzone, I think.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Falzone. I work as an employment coordinator for Comprehensive Youth Development, which is a CBO as well as a training provider. I will pass it to Christina Garcia.
Hey, good morning, all. I'm Christina Garcia. I'm Assistant Director at the Building Electrification Initiative, and we help local governments think through the transition away from fossil fuels. And my job as part of that is to help them think through workforce development and how to engage communities to be part of that transition. I don't see, oh, Joelle Lemetry, I don't know. I might mess up your last name.
Well, everyone does. With New York City Housing Authority, Energy and Sustainability Department. And I'll pass it to Elizabeth Shepard. Muted.
Sorry, I was just saying hey and thanks, Joelle. Lisbeth Shepard, I am a co-founder of Green City Force, and I'm currently a strategic advisor to our new ED, Tanya Gale.
Excellent. I think we've made it around. If anyone wasn't called and wants to be, raise your hand. Oh,
Hi, this is Chris Collins from Solar One.
Oh.
Executive Director at Solar One. I'm just dialing in today. I'm not able to see you on Zoom. We're an environmental education organization and training partner in energy efficiency and green building operations and maintenance and solar PV installation. And we are also a solar pre-development organization developing solar projects in New York City.
Wonderful.
I can't pass it on to anybody because I can't see.
Yeah,
on the call.
I see Joseph raised his hand, so.
Yeah, good morning, all of you. My name is Joseph Varghese, and I work for the Human Resources Administration with the Business Link. We are looking for green jobs for our clients who are on public assistance, and we would like to refer them for trainings, develop a skill, and get a decent paying job so that they could be out of public assistance. And that's what we are looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Unmute yourself and chime in if you didn't get to speak. Okay, Roman, I'm going to ask you to pull the PowerPoint back up. While he's doing that, if there is anyone who wants to speak, please do. All right, well, thank you. I think that was fairly successful for a virtual round the room toss. So thanks for engaging in it, and we'll continue to find ways for us to all connect with each other. So I'm just going to quickly review it. On our last meeting, I went into detail on the jobs first process, and I'm not going to do that again. On the participant agenda, you see some diagrams about our process. On our website, you could link to our process and read all about it. But I just want to kind of talk about, where we are now. So what we've done. We've already together, obviously, we've convened all of you, so convened stakeholders, and we've explored some of the challenges in the green economy and defined some of the problems. And today we're actually going to go a little bit deeper into that and talk about the barriers, and then also identify opportunities for greater coordination. But we've discussed funding opportunities with NYSERDA. We've had lots of presenters from both labor and unions, and lots of areas of expertise in sustainability, and our partners in this work have presented. And in our last meeting, we explored some of the labor market conditions and economic opportunities. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about what that data reveals or confirms, and what questions it raises. And then in our next meeting, so this is just a sense of our roadmap and where we are. We've covered some of the things under the supply and labor market demand, where I highlighted it green there. But in this meeting, we're going to focus again on the data and what problems we could solve for together. And in our next meeting, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the asset infrastructure piece and talk about what we as a network, what are the assets that we bring in the table, and how are we leveraging that as a network. Okay, next slide, please. So it's my pleasure to invite our partner, a thought leader and certainly passionate advocate for young adults in this space, Elizabeth Shepard, the strategic advisor at Green City Force.
Thank you, Carrie. Hi, everybody. So I wanted to reiterate what spurred us to come together to try to create this network, and also address the labor market presentation from our last meeting. So at Green City Force, the Green City is one built on principles of racial, economic, and environmental justice. Our mission is to get young people from NYCHA, who are Black and brown young people, 18 to 24, who faced already massive unemployment rates pre-pandemic of over 70%, into good jobs in the green economy. And we started 10 years ago, inspired by Van Jones's vision of an inclusive green economy, and also bolstered by very strong labor market predictions at that time. What we found is that the hard part is the good in good jobs. So there have been jobs, but building actual career paths with steady work and family supporting wages and benefits and ways to advance has been really hard. For example, we could get money to train for solar jobs, but then there would be very few jobs going against the predictions, or those jobs would be very short-term contract jobs, or the companies would literally fold. We would try to get our people into union jobs, but after many efforts would find that there were only a couple people making it in, and that those paths were not consistent. And then alongside that, we found ourselves in competition with our peers for funding, for contracts, and for the actual jobs. So 5 years ago, Green City Force started working with JobsFirstNYC as part of the Young Adult Sectoral Employment Project, with this goal of developing consistent career pathways for our graduates into the green economy. And there are 2 points or takeaways in particular that I wanted to share that are relevant to today's discussion. We looked at labor market data and we concluded that it didn't really tell us anything helpful. Instead, we realized that we needed to focus on where investments were happening at the city level, in NYCHA, in our case, from the state. And we also realized we needed to have our own definition of sectoral jobs. So we purposefully avoided the catchphrase of green job and defined our sector instead around a frame of sustainable buildings and communities. This allowed us to hone in on and describe, sort of capture all jobs related to buildings inside and out and on top of buildings, the land around buildings, and the people living there, encompassing education and outreach, behavior change. And we embrace that for us at Green City Force. Green economy is synonymous with BIPOC leadership and inclusion. And this working definition of ours has evolved and has informed the one that we've adopted as a group here and that Carrie alluded to earlier. Our second takeaway was that Green City Force cannot fix the gaps in these career paths on our own, that access to unions, addressing job quality across the sector, procurement issues, requires that we need to build on others' expertise and relationships and build trust and alignment and communication with peers to engage together around the issues. So that's what brought us into conversation with Hope and New, Jobs First framework that Carrie has described for employment networks. We realized the opportunity to apply this to a sector-based approach that would be citywide. And so following their process, as Carrie has described, this fall, we opened up for interested parties to join us on this journey. And since there's a lot of movement right now around the green economy, our first meetings have, as she described, highlighted exactly this question of where are the investments flowing? Where are the opportunities where jobs are going to be there because we know that the investments are actually happening? We raised up voices of young adults who've chosen to make their careers or are making those careers happening, working in composting, in wind, in energy efficiency. And we've honed in on unions, Climate Jobs New York, apprenticeship expansions. These are all things that are moving and really important. But today we wanted to reground around what brought us together in the first place, which is really getting into the reality of what it's going to take to make careers happen in a consistent way. And so super excited to have Charles with us today to be able to have this example of WeAct, who are really making the vision of this inclusive green economy real in solar. And in particular, we've had a lot of pain points around that at Green City Force, so really appreciate that. And so we really want to get into how we can work collaboratively as a network to build a network and to seize the moment. So one of our aspirations is to bring to light just who is doing what and what are our collective assets, and to build relationships and be able to start really getting into how we can work together and be stronger all together. So before we get into that, we want to address the labor market presentation from our last meeting. So if you're at that meeting and in the chat, you would know that that presentation left out Latinx as a category and also portrayed Amazon jobs as green jobs. So we want to follow up here, since this was a big oversight, to acknowledge it and also to underscore that this presentation was out of sync with our values, rendering Latinx people invisible and suggesting that Amazon is a purveyor of the good green jobs that we are seeking is not what we're about. So I understand, and we understand there's a lot of interest in labor market data. And I was reminded from Carrie's presentation that it's also part of the Jobs First, obvious, process. I think it's clear how I feel about labor market data. So it's a little ironic that I've been tagged to lead the conversation about labor market data, but I want to acknowledge that there are lots of different perspectives and ours is clearly just one, but really underscore that as practitioners, we're serious about doing this work around barriers and collaboration and engaging with employers and institutions, you know, more than kind of, you know, focusing on these labor market projections. That said, Carrie wanted to create a space for people to react to the presentation. I think there's a table where you can do that, and do want to, you know, hear from people. And I also, I do believe that, you know, this may be something that merits a working group to address these issues further, and the, you know, labor market in general. All right. I can't see anybody, but I hope that people are out there. Tanya's laughing at me because I really actually really feel strongly, given how much time at Green City Force we have wasted, you know, following labor market data. So I'm glad at least I'm I'm making her laugh, but no, it's again, I don't want to be the only voice here. So opening it up.
I'll quickly chime in just to share, you know, Jobs First in the work that we've been doing the past few months, and all of the work that we do is somewhat reliant on labor market information. Obviously, it's a sector by sector basis, and how well that labor market information can be analyzed, and how it's pulled, right? So there's a lot of new ways that labor market information is being pulled. And we've been speaking with folks who are doing it differently, a little bit more like skills mapping and skills based and real-time labor market information and things like that. The presentation that was shared last in December didn't necessarily utilize all of these new ways of looking at labor market information. And there's also just the things that we can do more, like the boots on the ground. And we'll talk about that, and we'll ask for you, like Lisbeth said, to be part of like a working group or an action group that helps drive that and helps us think about, you know, is it focus group conversations with employers, or, you know, people who are very tuned into the investments? What are other ways to get data that isn't just relying on a labor market presentation like the one we had? So Carrie, these are questions. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I will jump in and say, Elizabeth, I feel your frustration. I also feel like I've been burned, I mean, with trying to follow labor market and data. And especially in the sector, it's been challenging. I will say, I think it's helpful to distinguish between labor market projections and actual labor market data. And I think I think where in this sector, oftentimes what's happened is the projections haven't happened, or the reality has been different than the projections. I think it's helpful but I do think it's helpful to have, and it would be a useful resource for us to understand actual labor market data, like current hiring, like, you know, how many people are employed in this area, how many jobs are open, how many people were hired last quarter, that kind of a thing, like the actuals. The projections are not so helpful, because I think there's a lot of reasons why those have gone wrong.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, I was a little bit discouraged, or not, maybe not discouraged, but a little surprised that construction was such a main feature to the conversation. And also how small the numbers were reflected for the number of occupations and jobs. It would have been interesting to see more about electrification, building upgrades, and possibly even micromobility and transportation, as those are all very impactful in the green economy, I believe. So that was a bit of my reaction to the presentation.
Thank you, Gaspar. And I also see Mike chiming in, and thank you, Zakia. In the chat, Mike, I don't know if you want to share.
Sure, yeah. This is coming from, yeah, I mean, funding is a is a difficult issue, and I know, thank you, Elizabeth, for mentioning that, and especially that tension that can jump in as seeing like competition between organizations, which is just so counterproductive. So I see this even from the companies that we're starting to really engage with, is on the one hand, and this is linked to their, the data that comes out on number of job openings, for example, in the building automation sector. And then the processes, the HR processes that the companies that are posting these jobs are kind of sticking to. And so what we're seeing is that, like, a lot of our work is it's in the relationship, so that we can get to the point where we have established the trust to be able to start working with companies to look at how their HR practices and what their really biases and expectations are within those practices, so that that system can start to change, because they're spending a lot of money on having to place for these particular jobs, and it's not being particularly successful, right? They still have all of these jobs openings. They can't find the talent they need, but there's not yet the momentum or the vision for how could you take that same amount of money that it's costing them and do it in a more productive way.
Thank you. So I think we need to move on to our core presentation, if that is okay. Again, I can see Mike, and I can't see anybody else, so Mike can give me the yay or nay. No, but I think, am I right, Carrie, that it is time?
Yes, you are right.
Okay, great. So excited to ask Aram Marcel from our GCF team to present our speaker.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. So good morning, my name is Aram Marcel, and I am the Alumni Training and Advancement Manager at Green City Force. And it's my pleasure today to be introducing Charles Calloway, who is currently serving as a Director of Organizing and Membership at We Act for Environmental Justice. So Charles has been with We Act for the past 13 years and currently resides in West Harlem. He's played a key role in organizing residents around significant issues in Harlem, and has helped the community to better understand the importance of environmental advocacy. He's worked with Harlem residents on the Columbia University expansion, the 125th Street rezoning, by developing their capacity to advocate for their own communities. Charles has worked with a community task force and the MTA to build the first green bus depot in Harlem. Charles is also responsible for recruiting and training over 200 community members in OSHA 30 and asbestos handling courses. And because of his hard work, more than 78 community members are now working in the construction field. More recently, Charles has been involved in helping We Act to start a solar cooperative, which I'll let him tell you more about. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Charles Calloway.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning? Still morning. So I just want to make that happen. Yes, I've been at We Act for quite a while. As I envisioned, I didn't think I was going to be there that long, but I'm happy that I'm there. To talk about worker training and all the work that I've done, I first got to kind of start back with the idea that We Act had a vision of worker training very on in the beginning of the existence, and they were doing the Carpers Reunion when they first started, and really realized how hard it is to get people into the union. And they did all this training and they couldn't get people on the union, so they kind of put it back on the back burner. We reopened up the worker training process right after Superstorm Sandy, because we knew that there would be jobs available to rebuild a community, and realized that we had people in these different communities, but they did not have the qualifications, and not saying the qualifications, the certificates they needed to get on a job site. We also knew that they had the skills, so we were working with the Deep South Center in Louisiana, who actually gave us a small grant to start training people in 30-hour OSHA. During that time, they only needed the 10-hour OSHA, but we realized that, just to make sure our people could not be passed up, we made sure that we were giving out the 30-hour OSHA. So we did that. As he said, we trained over 2,000 people in OSHA training, and many of them are working in the construction industry. We also teamed up with Local 78, Local 79, as we knew that NYCHA was going through some asbestos removal in all the buildings. We really wanted to make sure that we got a part of that. And we got some people from local NYCHA buildings, Grand Houser, Manhattanville, the Audubon, St. Nicholas, to be a part of that process. So we also sent them, we got a grant, and we also sent them to school, and they got their asbestos, and they've been working with Local 78, Local 79. Now, when I say that, I'm looking at a handful of people, right? I'm looking at maybe 15, 16 people that we were able to get in the union. But we've trained over, 80 people in asbestos removal. So moving forward, I just wanted to talk about how do we got to the solar cooperative. So we were doing a community plan around trying to figure out what people were concerned about in their community, right? It was called the Northern Manhattan Climate Agenda. So we organized over, I would say, to my records, about 400 people from various parts of Northern Manhattan to talk about environmental justice issues, right? That was the first thing. And a couple of things came out of that meeting. It took us about a year to get all that done. One was energy security, okay? Energy security was a big issue because we realized that people, besides paying rent, energy is the second largest cost in people's homes. And wanted to figure out how we can help our community and making sure that they do not have that burden. As you know, not as you know, but at times people were worrying about heat island effect, which is an environmental issue, because we were thinking about, people live in these apartments and they turn their air conditioning on. We wanted to make sure that they could actually afford it. We realized that because we were trying to bridge the gap of people being safe and healthy during the time of the summertime, because we had another project called Heat Island Effect, when we realized that during that time, people were actually going to be running their air conditioners and make sure they're safe. And we're talking about cooling centers and all that kind of stuff. How do we help them with their energy costs so that way they can live healthier? So out of that meeting, we came up with the idea that energy was one of the things that we needed to tackle. As we knew during that time, solar was coming up. We've got our first small grant to do a project around LMI buildings. We really wanted to focus on LMI buildings, and throughout the state, many of the buildings they had all these programs about advocating opportunities for people to get solar. So we had an idea that we would do that with the HCFCs in Northern Manhattan. So my first thing was to go around and get all these buildings. We ended up getting the first round, we ended up getting like 250 kilowatts worth of solar And that's about 45 buildings in Northern Manhattan to talk about putting solar on their project. And the project was called Sun, right? Solar Uptown Now. And because of that, we were able to get a good bid to put that solar on top of buildings. We were contracting with a solar installer, and we were talking about how we can get people on the jobs. And when we were doing it, we said, we need for every 100 kilowatts worth of solar, we need to get a job. And when we trained 100 people and you only get 2 jobs out of it, it's really annoying, right? And then we were hoping that we also made sure that our people not only took the solar training, but they got the knapsack certification. At least had the opportunity to take that test, because if you don't have the opportunity, you can never become actually a really solar installer. And a lot of these companies are looking for knapsack people to actually put on their staff. So by doing that and understanding how that takes place, we trained people. We trained over 100 people. We got 2 jobs out of the business that we created. So let me just step back and make sure I got this clear. We went out and got these buildings to do solar, right? We went to our community partners who had HCFCs that we knew to sell them about solar. And then we sold that process we did a bidding process and gave it to a contractor who hired 2 people for about 4 months. And I was like, and then we're like, how about the next buildings? And they were like, well, we don't have any business, so forth, so on. And they kind of let our guys go. Some of the guys stayed, some of the guys go. So moving forward, I was really working on trying to get our people work in the solar industry, calling different solar companies. Some of the guys got some jobs, some other places, but really the crutch was that we weren't getting enough jobs. Cecil, my former deputy director who has passed away, kept on coming past my desk every day. And it's like, Charles, where are the jobs? Charles, where are the jobs? We need jobs for these guys. We trained all these guys. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, I don't know, Cecil. So I heard about the Green Workers Cooperative a while back. And, when you don't have jobs and, me being an entrepreneur, besides working at WeAct, I realized that, I need to create these jobs. I mean, I have all the connections in the community. I have the buildings that I know. I know, this is my community, and let me create this. So I convinced we started off with 17 guys who went to the worker training, and I convinced them to be a part of the Green Workers Cooperative. And we went through a training for about 7 months training on how to build a business, how to create a business. Even though most of us had businesses or been business owners, or some of us have been workers, but to create a bond with these men. And we went through it. We met 3 times a week. We did everything. We did a lot of things together. We fought and fight. And we ended up graduating as one of the largest groups ever out of the Green Workers Cooperative. Mind you, when they first started out, I think there was close to like 70 different people in the room. When we ended up, there were only like 24, and out of that 24, we had 11 of those people who completed the training. So, and they were very proud of us completing it, because 11 different personalities trying to create a business it's a struggle. So just moving forward, we incorporated ourselves in May of 2020. We are now a solar cooperative. And we have been working on different jobs throughout the city. Well, not out the city, but different jobs upstate New York. We're in the process right now of doing 240 kilowatts of solar. And that's where we're going to be in the spring. We're going to be putting solar on top of buildings in the city. So I just want to back up. We had some great help along the way. Solar One was very helpful to us. and helping us understand the solar industry. We went, all our guys went through their training school. They were committed. The training school was about 3 weeks. We also did the BPI, which really didn't turn out very well, but we were really concentrating on the solar. We were trying to get people to work for Sunrun, Venture Solar. We were sending people every day with resumes, and they just wasn't hiring our people. And that's really frustrating when you have qualified people and they're just not hiring them. And even today, we're still working on a project with a solar company, and they called me up because we wrote a grant with them, and they called me up yesterday, a month ago, and says, "Oh, we need resumes for a job that we're doing." And I'm like, you have all the resumes, number one, and I know how the process goes. Before you even get into to actually put solar, there's a 3-month process of actually applications that you have to do. So don't call me 3 months now to get resumes, because I can't get people. I don't want to get people gassed up that someone's going to call them to do a job, and you're going to call them 3 months later. So call me 2 weeks out, and I'll see whoever's available. Because right now we are in the process of doing a 4-megawatt system in Croton, New York. All right, we have 8 guys on the job who are up there working. Our first system that we really did was a 250 kilowatt system, also in Newtown, New York. We were able to we were able to buy a vehicle so we can travel back and forth through the first effort on our job. They pay the guys, and then they give sons a little bit of money so that way we can maintain the things that we need to do for our company. Right now, like I said, we're up there. We got 8 guys on the job. We're working, and this spring, we should, like I said, we should be doing 240 kilowatts in the city alone that we already have tagged. And we're still looking to do more work. We really haven't done the outreach that is necessary for us to do a lot more work, but hopefully we will do close to about 500 kilowatts worth of solar in New York City. That's the ultimate goal, but we definitely have 240 right now. And I'm just going to leave that open for questions. If anyone has any questions, please do so. I hope that's enough information for you guys and understand what we're doing at this moment in time.
Thank you so much, Charles, for sharing your experiences. We have time for one question, but if you're interested in asking a little bit more, you can always chat Charles in the chat room. And we can also provide some contact information.
About the work that we're working on together.
Yeah, that's right. And Green City Force is also working with Charles on a project as well in solar in NYCHA. So we were working with it's an example of just different organizations trying to collaborate and get folks jobs on these solar projects. Is there any questions for Charles? You can raise your hand. You can put it in the chat. Mike says it's so inspiring. Yeah, I agree. Joanna Larson wrote, how is the business development going for the cooperative?
It's going well. We meet, the guys meet once a week, every Wednesday. Everybody's actually working right now, even though they may not be working in the solar industry. There's 11 of us. I'm also a part of the cooperative, but it takes a lot of time. We've got bylaws. Right now, we're in the process of writing. We have a website called Solar Uptown Now Services. We're right now doing a membership manual for us. So it's a weekly and a battle of working to achieve those goals as we move forward.
Thank you, Charles. Unfortunately, we have to move on to the next section, but please continue to keep the conversation going in the chat. If you have any questions for Charles, hopefully you can stick around for a little bit and answer some of those questions. And just throwing it back to Carrie.
Hi, thank you, Aram. Yeah, I know, yeah, Elizabeth, I'm sure you have lots of questions and other folks do. Like Aram said, please put it in the chat. Charles will be with us through this meeting and hopefully in meetings going forward. We'd love to have you at this design table with us, Charles. So thank you for being here today. We're going to head into breakout conversations. And as we get ready to do that, I think, let's see, yeah, based on the number of people we have here, we'll do 4 breakout rooms. And we're going to use the participant agenda for that, if you want to have it open, but just know each room will have 2 facilitators who will help kind of walk through the conversation and also help to capture what you're talking about in the participant agenda. So, but you could also always feel free, if you're more comfortable putting what you're thinking on paper, to type it into the participant agenda. If you scroll down, there's going to be a room for each breakout, and you'll know which section is yours based on who your facilitators are. And so the table there, you know, it guides you on what we're talking about, and you see in the slide here. And you know, we're going to be reflecting on what we've been discussing today, what we've discussed in previous meetings, even dating back to the larger event we had in, I think it was September. Everything that you've heard to kind of contribute toward this conversation, where you're brainstorming around the barriers that the people that you serve are facing, and barriers to what our ultimate goals are in, you know, building an inclusive green economy and the realization of good jobs for a inclusive and diverse population. So as we do that, these conversations are going to be facilitated in one room by Kathleen with Trey, another room Elizabeth and Aram, third room Zakia and Renee, and the last room will be Tanya and Eric. Elizabeth, I know you weren't feeling great, so if you need us to swap out anything, just let us know. And yeah, so those are your facilitators, and I'm gonna toss it to Jesse, who's going to invite you into those breakout rooms, my usual. So facilitators who are leading those conversations, or anyone really, can we do some sharing out of what were elevated as, you know, what do you think, what came up in your group that you think all of us should know? And maybe, you know, what are the most common barriers and what can we, oh, there on your screen, and what can we solve for together? And
I'll go first. Hey everyone, it's Kathleen Culhane here. So we had a great conversation, thoughts that I think will resonate with the larger group in terms of, you know, some of those internal barriers include digital literacy and access, right? We talked about math literacy, English literacy as well. We talked about driver's licenses and access to transportation, being like a car, and a lot of people don't have that or don't have driver's licenses, especially in New York City. We talked about that work experience, having that on your resume, but also having that exposure, be it work or training, and having the lexicon that might be needed. We talked about justice involvement as well. We also talked, got a chance to talk a bit about the external factors, including the unstable housing, food instability, childcare, and then we were able to talk a little bit about opportunities as well. Charles was sharing that he is going to Albany in a couple of weeks in terms of thinking about the advocacy that is an opportunity, and we talked about the NYSERDA ponds that are available as opportunities as well.
Great. How about Lisbeth, or if it wasn't Lisbeth who's facilitated, whoever did?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I'm always concerned whether people can hear me or not. I don't know why. So our group, we spoke about a couple of different things. The first thing we spoke about was trying to address the knowledge gap that practitioners in the field, workforce agencies are facing about just knowledge about the green industry and how we actually connect folks to green jobs. So it's sort of like the blind leading the blind sometimes. Like we need to, we feel like the practitioners are feeling their way in the dark, right? So we're hoping that a group like this can help, connect organizations where we can all kind of find the light together, so to speak. There's just this, it's just you're supposed to be helping someone find a green job, right? But you don't necessarily know exactly how to connect to it, right? So trying to demystify what it is. And then also someone else brought up in our group is that green jobs aren't necessarily always defined, right? It's kind of amorphous in some ways because of the fact that anyone can say that they're working a green job, right? Because it's this thing that's it's this big idea, right? We know it's good for the environment, people, planet, profit. We understand that, but anything could be a green job. So that it could also turn into like greenwashing as well too, right? So there's a need maybe for it to be more closely defined, so employers can't get away with saying, "Oh yeah, I'm offering a green job," right? Because the employees recycle their, let's say, like their waste or something like that. So having the government kind of step in or having groups like this step in and step up to help define what a green job is, so companies can't just claim to have green jobs. We spoke about just figuring out how to connect to unions, and there's a knowledge gap when it comes to connecting to unions, and then there's also obviously the education gap, where lack of GED. There's COVID has also created some childcare issues and challenges, and then the other thing, a really big thing, is just like a lot of companies do have, they have racist or sexist or ableist practices, and so how do we overcome those barriers of trying to find our folks really good in green jobs, but then facing employers who don't have the best standards overall. So how do we as a group, kind of come together and fight to make the workforce more equitable for all people of races and religions and everything.
Yeah, and to add a little bit to that, Carrie and Aram, that was great. Aram and Lisbeth co-facilitated our breakout. And I think kind of a way to summarize it, the blind leading the blind is definitely one way to put it. What I really appreciated about our breakout group is that we kind of focused on the quote unquote leaders or experts barriers, not the trainees. Because, I think we're all pretty familiar with what the training program participants struggle with, the job seekers, the vulnerable populations that we work with. But the truth is that, even there's really limited amount of experts in this space, I believe. And it's similar to the tech sector, the greenwashing component, for sure. I mean, you have companies who literally bleach paper and then stain it brown and then tout it as, environmental napkins, for example, when the reality is that they're not at all. So there's a lot of opportunism there too, and people just aren't familiar with that.
Thank you, Gaspar and Aram. Sharing out from another conversation, Zakia.
Hey, hi. Thanks, and I think Renee is going to chime in with some of the summary. We talked a lot about the barriers in terms of the quality of the jobs that are out there and linking folks to that work, and so what it means to have a sustainable career in this sector, and the role of whether it be city entities to sort of incentivize that type of commitment from employers. I don't know, Renee, if you would like to add some more. or anyone else from our group for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's similar to what the other groups had said is, we kind of understand the barriers from the trainer or the trainee, but it's really looking at the companies and how do we get the companies involved in incentivizing them, and what kind of standardization are we creating to maybe help facilitate some of those jobs. And we looked at it from that perspective.
And also, just to add, we talked a bit about what the network could do in terms of connecting the folks that have the money to sort of fund these jobs and these programs to say, this is the type of job that we're looking for. We want it to be full-time. We want people to have benefits. We want people to be taken care of, and the role of advocacy and policy in terms of making that a reality.
Thank you. Great points. I think the last group is Tanya, our group.
Yeah, so actually Tanya just private messaged me, said she actually had to jump. So here I am, and definitely, Carrie, jump in if what I miss here. So we talked quite a lot about sort of the barriers created by like the lower wages that are created, in the initial jobs in this sector at times. And so talking about different ways to, give our participants, particularly younger participants, financial support, whether that's in the form of, direct financial assistance, or in, helping them with startup costs like gear and tools and things of that nature. I think one thing that also came up for me is the need for this group to, set a rubric or some sort of threshold for what we define as a good job. I think it is a amorphous concept, but important for us as a group to come to consensus on, what the wage floor is going to be, or what our sort of stance on requiring that benefits be offered in terms of calling that an acceptable job for us to be pursuing, or really kind of bringing to a consensus what we want to ask out of employers, given that we do have some collective leverage here as such a strong group of community-based organizations. Carrie, anything that I missed?
No, you did a great job. I think, one thing that we've heard throughout is some conversation around the lack of funding, but maybe it's just, this group working together. One of the things to continue to solve for is identifying the funding, because it does sound like there are a lot of things out there and there's a lot of investments on the horizon. The other thing that I've heard in our group and some of the other groups mentioned is something around like shared common language, shared definitions. And that's another thing that the group could work on together. And then there was kind of two sides of the conversation around job quality. What is it the role of workforce development to push on job quality, or, maybe it's more the minimum wage piece, as opposed to being the source of like supplemental resources for people who are just getting footing in the sector, and maybe the jobs are starting at minimum wage, and what's the balance there. So it's a conversation of kind of the collective voice to meet with and speak with employers. And I think we heard that across the groups and in ours as well. So thank you. I see we're a bit over time, so I dropped in our chat the kind of the follow-up items. We shared the themes here. We had another poll we were going to administer, but I'll do that in follow-up. So look for a follow-up email. If you could, of course, fill in our feedback survey. We are only as good in improving based input for what you want, what you need, and how this is working for you. And also there's a link to register for our next meeting, which is February 4th. The next 3 meetings, we're going to ask you to hold 10 a.m. to noon. And as the meeting gets closer and we've scheduled who the presenters will be or what the facilitated conversation will be, we'll narrow that as needed. But again, thank you. This was a really great conversation. I hope it was good for all of you and you enjoyed it. And it was good to be together this morning. So thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and of course, thank you, Charles and partners for helping pull this together.